in this video, I have Dennis with me to talk about his research paper. Dennis, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Dennis Taggart, and I currently work as an information security officer at a large nonprofit in the Salt Lake City area. And information security officer is kind of one of those broad titles. I get to do a lot of different security things and wear many different hats. So it's a job I really like. I also am in the SANS Technical Institute's MSISE program. So I'm working towards the engineering track, and I'm almost done with that. So that's really fun. And this was my second research paper.
So excited to have it almost behind you, kind of. Yeah, so CISO, of course, is sort of the guy that always has to apologize if things go wrong. I hope not too much stuff goes wrong there.
Yeah, luckily I have a CISO above me. I'm just an ISO. So
Oh, okay, so you have another level there to shield you. That's pretty good. You looked at cloud, or cloud, of course. I hear it's a big topic. People like to move stuff in the cloud. What was your research paper about?
it was about specifically flow logging in the cloud. And the inspiration behind this was kind of a funny story, because I don't know if any of the listeners have done research papers or tried to figure these things out, but that can be a hard effort just to figure out what you're going to talk about. And for me, my mind went back to a conversation I had with the Security Operations Center analyst one point. I was investigating an issue, and it was dealing with traffic traversing multiple load balancers and trying to figure out, where is this traffic coming from? Is it a problem, etc.? Well, architecture diagrams and application logging got me everything I needed. And I pulled together the group that was interested in this, because I love the knowledge sharing aspect of our job too. And after the meeting, I explained what was going on. One of the analysts stopped me after and said, "Hey, too bad you didn't have flow logs, huh? That would have been so much easier." And I thought, I don't know if it would have been as easier. Great question. And that kind of spawned this research a year or so later. So
Yeah, of course, I'm sort of a big network guy, like intrusion detection and such, and that's always what I'm missing kind of in the cloud, is that you no longer control the networker. So that's of that shared responsibility, I think they call it, or you have the responsibility and don't blame the cloud provider. What do you find? What do you find with flow logs? Did you get them, and were they helpful?
yeah, so the way I had a specific methodology to first, because obviously if it's not network traffic, flow isn't going to be able to help very much. So I needed some way to say, here are cloud threats that are relevant, and which ones of these can flow speak to and which can't, and does that matter? Because maybe some threats aren't a big enough deal to even want the flow logs. So I took the Cloud Security Alliance's Egregious 11 from 2019, and I broke those into manageable groups and then made a little test for each to then decide, well, would flow logging help detect an attack against this type of area, this group of threats? And there were some where flow was really helpful, especially where you're getting into something that's such as like metastructure stuff, where you might not have a lot of visibility otherwise if you're not looking at the network layer. And even the visibility you have might not be complete, but maybe you get clues from the flow logs. That's what I was finding.
So now, typically when you set up your cloud environment, you do it right, so you don't have like exposed buckets all over the place, kind of. You can set up these with security groups, or that basically restrict traffic, similar to how in a normal network a firewall or so would do it, or?
Right. And the security group visibility, that's basically at least in AWS where I did this testing, that visibility mainly comes from flow logs. So if you don't have flow logs, then you're not going to see what your security group is acting like with certain attacks or certain requests. With S3, if you've got some bucket open, flow logs can't help because they sit outside of the VPC, that virtual private cloud construct. And so you don't get to see anything about network traffic to S3. You have to turn on S3 logging separately to see that.
Now, when we chatted here before the recording started, you mentioned that you found some inconsistencies there, or how some of the security groups don't exactly work the way they're supposed to work, right?
Well, it was more, they work like they're supposed to, but I had an understanding, or I had some expectations that maybe weren't exactly where they were supposed to be. I ended up, before I turned in my paper and the research, I ended up talking with Amazon to work through this, because what I was seeing was I could turn off all of the outbound rules for certain protocols, take ICMP, for example, but allow only one inbound protocol that's maybe not supported by the EC2 instance maybe I'm running on. Take like Fiber Channel, Protocol 133. There's no listener on the host to handle that protocol. But if I allow that inbound and block all the ICMP outbound I was seeing, I could still get ICMP responses out. And I reached out to Amazon, like, what's up with that? Is this state? I mean, I had this inkling maybe it's state, but different protocols, right? I thought state was by protocol, and if it was different protocol, it kind of transcends state. But anyway, turns out it is part of state. So
yeah, do you want to show us what's happening there? I think you have a little demo there.
Let me share it. You'll see here I've got a couple of different hosts. The reflecting host is going to receive a request. The listener and the sending host is going to send it and then listen for a response. Here I'm describing that security group, so I'm limiting it a lot. The sender and receiver really only can receive ICMP. And I'm going to pause this for a second, because what I found, even if you removed ICMP on that inbound rule, you could still receive an ICMP response. So it was kind of just interesting during the research. So here I am, I'm just going to start some listeners on both the hosts. Blue is the reflecting host, red is the sender and the one that's going to listen for whatever comes back. Real simple scapy packet is going to be sent. I'm protocol 133 FC, like I said.
Yeah, and
you see the response.
Yeah, the ICMPs come back. So yeah, the stateful in IP tables we call that established related. That would sort of be allowed there. Could this be still blocked by using like the right order of these security groups? That's sort of in IP tables. How you like use scapies of how you block the resets by making sure your resets are being blocked first before there's any kind of established related rule or anything like that.
So that's a really good question. And that is kind of how I was thinking of a security group, is almost an abstraction of IP tables. So I thought, if I just make this rule in a security group or remove it, then I should be basically just having an IP tables thing. In security groups, I didn't see that as possible. Now, if I were to go into IP tables on this host and specifically drop those responses, that should do what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not going to see that ICMP back because the host is going to drop it.
Okay, that's sort of cool. So you learned something as part of writing the paper, and how these security groups really work.
Yeah, can I share one other little interesting thing too?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
I found there are like 6 or 7 protocols that are by default listening on the Amazon machine image. And that's just something I wouldn't have known hadn't I been exploring this. There's not, at least documentation that I saw, explaining every host out of the box supports, UDP Lite, UDP, TCP, IPv6, blah, these different protocols. Mm-hmm. But based on the kind of response I got, I could determine, oh yeah, this protocol is supported out of the box.
Yeah, so like I always say, a vulnerability is an assumption that you don't verify, kind of. So if you assume that this doesn't work, but you don't actually test it with tool like Scapia or such, and then you'll never know. So anything else exciting that you found? Actually, did you play with IPv6 at all?
But a lot of the research would have applied the same way. Since Flow obviously can grab IPv6 traffic as well, it's very applicable. Most of the stuff I did, I just happened to be on before.
Yeah, I probably have to play with that myself a little bit with AWS. So just updating my IPv6 class, and that's a good thing to add there. Anything next? Like, what are you up to next? You're almost done with STI, so what are you going to do with all that free time?
It's funny. When I signed up for this program, my number 1 and 2 worries were research paper 1, research paper 2. And now that I'm done with research paper 2, I almost have been celebrating early, like I'm graduated. But then I sat down this week, I'm like, wait, I still have to do the whole GSE stuff. So anyway, once that's done, I'm going to be very happy. Just working, and I hope to continue to just learn and provide some value back if I can. And anyway, I love the field, so I'm in the field I want to be in. I know that much.
Well, so great that you're almost done in GSE. I guess after finishing the research papers, you'll get that done too. So thanks for taking the time here, and thanks for the demo, and good luck with the GSE.
Thank you.